Good day, everyone. Welcome on this extremely dark and rainy afternoon here in the Pacific Northwest. But we're not going to let that get us down. We have got a lot of stuff to get through today, and I want to get going right off with it. So today I'm very pleased to bring you the Spark Color 2 and Spark 2 R3 firmware release. So this is going to be brand new improvements, brand new features on top of two already great boards. So today, I want to talk about some Spark 2 specific features. These are ones that are just for the Spark 2. Then I'm going to talk about something I added just for Spark Color 2. After that, I'll talk about the general updates. These are going to be the updates that work in both versions of the firmware. And then finally, I'll talk a little bit about some pricing. So without further ado, let's go right into the Spark 2 specific updates. So the first of these updates is in the Saber Tracks. Now, many of you have complained that, hey, when I turn on Saber Tracks in like Spark Color or Spark, I just kind of sit back and relax and listen to it, but that's boring. I want to actually use my Saber still. I want to have some action. Well, to avoid this, I have now added a new feature to actually do that. Turn on the blade while the music's playing. How does it work? Well, first of all, I want to say that Saber Tracks now auto-engages. So as you're going through the menu of Spark 2, and it says Saber Tracks, if you push the main button or just let it go and don't push anything else, it'll automatically start playing the first track for you. And then once you've done that, you can press and hold the main button, or if you have a latching switch, just latch it, and then the main blade will do the extension effect, and then we'll start pulsing. And then from there, if you press and hold it again, or unlatch it, it'll retract in doing the retraction effect. Now at any time you can still press the aux button to advance tracks. And you can hold the aux button to exit the tracks mode completely, and then that'll load to the menu back at the first font. Now one other thing is I should mention, so this isn't Saber Cinema of Igniter 2. So you do get the extension effect, no sound, just the extension effect of the blade. Then you get the pulsing effect of the blade, no sound, and the retraction. And that's it, no other sound effects. So if you swing or clash your blade, it'll still just keep pulsing and no other effects will happen. But the good news is, unlike Igniter, you can actually use the aux button when the blade's on to just advance tracks. So that way, once the blade's on, you can just keep advancing if you need to. Now let's talk a bit about the selected color for Saber Tracks. How does that work? Well, since there's already three colors, one for each font, I thought it'd be best to allow you to get all of those in Saber Tracks. So how it works is the last used font is the color picked for Saber Tracks. For instance, if you take a font, like say font 1, load that, use it, turn it off, then you go to the menu and go to Saber Tracks. Once you're in Saber Tracks, when you turn on the blade, it'll take the color font 1. So if font 1 had C1 255, C2 at 0, then font the C1 255, that'll be the color in Saber Tracks. Now, if you turn Saber Tracks off, go back to the menu, and then say go to font 3, and that has C2 at 255, C1 at 0, then you go to that font, then go back to Saber Tracks and turn on the blade in Saber Tracks, then it would be C2 255. That's the color it would take. So basically by doing this, this allows you to get at all three of your colors in Saber Tracks. And so now that we've discussed this pretty well, let's check out a demo here. And this is going to be a pre-recorded demo. I don't really like to do the demos live. I like those pre-recorded. So let's go check this demo out and see how awesome it looks. All right, that demo was pretty good. So let's just keep going and see the next feature of Spark 2, specific to Spark 2, and that's with the LED channels. So there are many types of blade color combinations out there, especially nowadays with the good RGB LEDs, such as the NEC RGB LED that I sell. And many users, want to take advantage of that. The problem is for some people, they want all the colors, but they don't want like all the hilts like that I'm showing here, because all these hilts, it'd be very expensive to maintain them all just to get each color, and so they want to do the RGB install. However, the problem is right now with Spark 2, which is my most cost-effective board, it doesn't allow RGB mixing, so the user would have to buy multiple. And since my company was founded on color mixing, I just really feel it is the time now to bring in RGB support. So now the Spark 2 supports C1, C2, and C3 for RGB mixing. So C4 is still inactive on Spark 2. This is mainly for simplicity reasons, so you don't have to worry about configuration because it's kind of treated as a special channel in every other board. And so just like I was mentioning earlier, you have 3 fonts on the board, and each of those fonts can set a color for the main blade. So now you can have 3 main blade colors. For instance, with an RGB LED, you could have the first color as blue, second color as green, and third as red for each font. And that way you'll get all 3 of the main colors. Or if you're like, well, really want to go dark side, you can just use font 1 as, red, font 2 as like orange, and font 3 as yellow. So it's all up to you. It's completely RGB. And of course, your clash color and your clash and lock up together and your blast color can each be separately set too. So you have 3 colors you can set per font now, and completely with RGB. So that's it for the Spark 2 specific features. So let's move right along into Spark Color 2. So Spark Color 2, let's talk about its Saber Track improvement. And well, actually, this is pretty much similar to the feature we just talked about for Spark 2. But why did I then not put it into both? Well, because there's a few subtle differences, so I really want to call those out. That's why I made 2 separate sections. So with Spark Color 2, since there's color sets, when you turn on the blade in Saber Tracks, you can still do the twist motion and advance through all 9 color sets. And when you do that twist, it actually will play the sound. It gives you that tactile feedback that you've actually made the action, and it sounds cool, of course. So you do get that as well. And then instead of like Spark 2, where it's just the last color of the font you're on, what I do is treat Saber Tracks as its own completely own font for Spark Color 2. And it starts always with the default color set. And then as you do the twist, it will remember that, so that when you turn off Saber Tracks, go back to a normal font, and go back to Saber Tracks again, it will remember it. For instance, if you're on Saber Tracks, start with the default color set. Twist it twice, you'll be on color set 3. Then you go back to the menu and go maybe to some other font. When you come back to Saber Tracks, turn it on and turn the blade on again, you'll be back on color set 3. And so now, after discussing all that, let's see a really cool demo of the Spark Color 2 Saber Tracks in action. All right, so we saw Saber Tracks on both boards. It looks pretty great, turning on the blade. So let's get going and see some more great features. Now we're going to talk about the general updates that I did. Now these will be applicable for both Spark Color 2 and Spark 2. In general, the pictures and such will be for Spark Color 2, but it will be basically the same for both boards from here on out. All right, so the four things I really want to talk about are the smoother LED plus audio. That's the first thing. The second thing is the linear hum and linear actions. Third thing is alternating clash. And last, I want to talk about the extra mode I added. So let's go to this and briefly touch upon this LED smoothing and audio. And I said silence is golden here. And why do I say that? Well, basically with this feature, what I've done is I've smoothed out the blade effects. And so there, like before, you really couldn't notice it with the human eye because it was already pretty smooth. But I made it even smoother so that it's like there is no jerk at all now. So it's even a little more realistic. But the benefit of that is also that jerkiness could sometimes interfere with the audio. And now that won't happen anymore. So this will allow you to turn your volume down to 0 and still have crystal clear audio. Of course, you'll also gain the benefit if you are not doing 0 and just do the normal volumes. It'll be a little better. Now, it's not worlds better, it's just like a little better, but you guys want the best of the best, and this is just getting you even closer there. So that's awesome. So let's go right to the next feature then, and that's the linear hums and actions. Now this is actually a port from Igniter 2, and this was actually by far the most requested feature that people wanted from Igniter to be on the lower boards. So here at Nigon's Electronic Creations, we take feedback very seriously. This was heard, we heard your cries, it is here now. So linear hums and actions, it's ported directly from Igniter 2. And you can enable independently, just like Igniter 2, for your hums, ins and outs, and your swing, slash, clash, lockups, and blasts, which I call actions collectively. From here on out, I'll just say actions. So for those not familiar with the feature, how it works is, for instance, let's say we enabled it for the actions for font 1. And then we turn on font 1, and then we do a swing. It'll definitely play swing 0, 1. Then I swing it again. It'll definitely play swing 0, 2. Then 3, then 4, all the way till how many I have. And then when it hits the last one, when you swing it again, it'll just go back to 1. So that way you can, have it programmatically go through each one. You can have it, if you're doing a duel and you want a certain swing to be at a certain time, you could time it, etc. What's also neat about this feature is, again, ported from Igniter. Each sound has an independent count. Now, while you have to enable just the two groups together, each independent sound has its own count. So again, let's take an example. Say you've turned on linear actions for font 1. When you do a swing, it'll do swing 1. And then you swing it again, it'll do swing 2. Swing it again, then you'll be on swing 3. Now, if you do a clash, it won't think, okay, I need to do clash 4 because clash is an independent bank. So it'll know, hey, I haven't done a clash, so start with clash 1. Same with any other effect. So in this way, each one is separate. You just have to toggle. You can only toggle basically all of them or none of them. And that's mainly just to prevent you from having to toggle a ton of stuff in the config editor. And speaking of the config editor, here's a screenshot of it. This is, again, specifically for the Spark Color 2 R3, but it's the same for Spark 2 R3 basically. And what I just wanted to point out is, there you go. There's your checkbox to turn it on for the hums, ins, and outs. There's your checkbox for the actions. So you can just click those for any font you want, and then you'll have the linear effects and actions. All right, with that port, let's go to the next port, which is alternating clash. Now this is a feature that I just really loved from Igniter, the I2-R2 release. This feature, for those of you who remembered, in my mind, I wanted to make the clash have the same power as the bolt of lightning. And in my mind, no one had really done this yet in a board. And so I wanted to get this really right. And so that's what I did in I2-R2. And now I've ported it back into all the boards. So alternating clash, how does it work? How does it create that lightning effect? It actually alternates from a brightness color, which is your clash color, but then it drops down the low color back to the blade color. So you alternate between this clash and blade color very rapidly. And that will give you this really powerful flash. So again, low is the blade now, and high is the clash. However, you can just disable it and go back to the legacy mode, where the legacy is just, it takes the single clash color, there's a high brightness and low brightness of that color. And what's really great is with Spark Color 2 and Spark 2, there's a drop down with 8 pre-configured clash types. You can enable or disable this for all of those types, so it's compatible with them all. And on Spark Color 2, the R3 release, it's a per font setting, but it will apply to all color sets for that font once you've turned it on. So that means for font 1, say you've enabled it, you turn it on in color set 1, you do a clash, it'll be alternating. Twist to wrist, go to font 2, do a clash, that will be the alternating, even though it's a new color. What's cool is then you can turn it off, and if you go to font 2 and you have it disabled, then you can get it every color set with the legacy behavior. So you can have one Saber that gives you all the effects, all the behaviors. And here's the config editor again, and this is again for Spark Color 2 R3. Spark 2 will be very, very similar. I just wanted to show you right under the 2 drop downs is, here you go, is your checkbox. And so you can see up here in your guys' top right, that's where you want to do the drop down to choose your clash type. And then after that, you can choose, do I want the alternating version or not? And alternating clash is so awesome. It's going to look the same as Igniter 2, but I do want to really show this, especially for people not familiar. This is a great feature. So let's see this demo. Let's roll it. All right, another cool port feature, alternating clash. Now, let's go to the final feature, the new mode. Well, actually, the new mode is kind of a port as well, but it's a really special one, and that's the pixel support. I'm now bringing pixel support to all of my boards. Spark Color 2 R3 and Spark 2 R3 will also support the WS2812 style blades, which I'm calling pixel support. So pixel support, why? Well, because it gives you such an even brightness blade. I mean, it is a string style blade, so you're going to have the same brightness all the way up to blade. That just looks huge. To me, it's a lot better looking, especially in certain, when it's more light environment, you're fighting with a lot of lights like at a con. This does a much better job at that. But you're also getting RGB still, which is also really awesome, because RGB, as I described earlier, it's really what my company's founded on. And to me, like having one Saber that can do all the colors, that's just the way to do it. What's also cool is the pixel strings are a digital interface, so there's only 3 wires for all the colors. So that's even less than just a standard RGB wiring that you get for this really great blade. It also supports the standard or the strip style. What does that mean? Well, the standard is like the 5mm straw hat style blade, which I've built one. You can find it on the site here on my Facebook page, that is. And the strip blade is more like the Adafruit, skinny strips. And you can put 2 of those back to back, or preferable, I like to put 3 in a triangular fashion up the blade. So either of those are supported. And pixel wiring. So I did port the feature pretty much directly, but then I made one improvement actually. And that requires a slight change in the wiring. And this is upgraded from the I2R2 release. So power and data, you just wire the same. So power goes right to the battery power for the string. And then your data line, you need a resistor, and that goes from number 1 of the board by the end of the board, like the true drive. However, now ground goes right to C2, C3, and C4 instead of being grounded. And then you can just bridge number 2 to 2, number 3 to 3, and number 4 to 4 on the main board to the true drive, respectively. And what that gives you is basically the board now will control flipping off the entire string whenever the blade finally goes off and you go into low power mode. The board gets NeoPixel, or the pixel string, gets completely shut off. That saves power. So here's the updated wiring for that. You can see the black wire, which comes up about like yay, and there's 3 of them. So they're the grounds, and they go all the way down to C2, 3, and 4, like in parallel. That's how that's wired. And then you can see, of course, the power is the same, just goes right to the battery for each 3, and then the data line goes to number 1 on the board side. And then that gives you your digital interface for the strip. And I put 3 here, so this would be like the triangular prism style. And I ported all functionality for this. I just wanted to call out everything I ported. I ported impact blast, I ported blade length. So that means you can set the length of the entire blade. That'll way you get the extension retraction correct. You can set the impact blast, not just if it's on, but the length. So if you set it to 20, that means the blast will always be within 20 pixels of the center, like up or down the blade. And then I also ported the alternating clash, the enhanced version. So with the string blade, it's able to make it even more dramatic. I've ported that as well. And just like Igniter, you have 2 boards and 1 board, or 2 blades and 1 board. What does that mean? Well, that means, like, say Spark Color 2. You just buy Spark Color 2, and when you get it, you can run both types of it by changing the SD card. So you don't need to buy a separate board. You just buy the board, and then you'll be able to decide once you get it. And this helps. It's a win-win. It helps you guys. It makes it easier for you, and it makes it easier for me, so I don't have to know at the time of purchase like which thing to include, etc. Now, as I mentioned in Igniter 2, you can actually wire a hilt so that you can like plug in an LED module, unplug that, plug in a connector, and plug in your string. It was already a bit complicated, but now with this new wiring, unfortunately, it's a little more complicated. So I actually advise against it. It's too cumbersome. If you're a really advanced user and insist on doing this, you can contact me privately to get more details. And with that, let's see an awesome Pixel string blade installed into the Spark Color 2 and then the Spark 2 to see how awesome that looks. Wow, those Pixel blades, man, they just look so good. I love them. I've converted all my Sabers save for the one I needed for this demo, and I suspect that will get converted pretty soon as well. But let's get going. So now we've talked about all the updates, but I wanted to mention one more thing that you guys really care about, which is pricing. So here at Nigon's Electronic Creations, I believe that we have very fair pricing. I try to treat my customers very well. I know budgets are tight. I know this is, a side thing, but I just really want customers to get the best bang for the value, and I feel like my products do that. However, I'm always looking for ways to cut cost, save some money, bring more product to the end user. Because the more you guys buy my product, it's not about me like taking the money. It's really about there's more of my product out in the wild. It's like, and I feel, the more I see of my board and then someone puts this awesome video of it, the more I'm like, wow, I feel like I've lived through you a little part and I've helped you in some way. And I love that feeling. And so I always want to bring costs down so I can get more of that. And well, for this release, I've done that. So for Spark Color 2, the R3, it is now going to be $100 on my site. And for Spark 2 R3, it's now going to be $68 on my site. Now, that sounds like a win-win. You're getting more features, less price. I mean, it pretty much is. There are a couple tiny caveats, though. First of all, for anyone that bought a board, like if you just recently bought one, I am going to refund you. Don't worry. I'll refund you like the difference, like if you bought a Spark 2, I'll refund you 79 minus 68, $11, right? So I'll do this for the past 4 weeks. I'll go through for all the Spark 2 and Spark Color 2 orders. If within like a week or so and you're in this group and you didn't receive your refund, please contact me directly. I have to go through them manually. I might miss one, but I will do this. Second, and this is really unfortunate news, but for SC2-R2 to SC2-R3, it's unfortunately not an in-place upgrade. I'm going to start a real quick tech description for anyone that's like not a programmer or doesn't care about tech stuff. Like you can twiddle your thumbs or hum or something or look at cool pictures. So what happened is for Igniter 2, so there's actually two compilers that can be used with the firmware to create the firmware that I use for my board. I've been using kind of the main default one up until Igniter 2-R2, then I switched over to this fancier one, which gave me the ability to do like the strings and this extra stuff I've been doing. Well, the problem is when I ported that back to SC2 to get the string functionality, that new compiler basically wrecked the loading. It changed it. So now it's not compatible. I can't load the new firmware anymore. Okay, in tech talk for anyone that was twiddling your thumbs. So I feel bad about this because I pretty much tell my customers that SC2 and Igniter 2, both those boards you get free upgrades until the hardware changes, obviously. And this isn't a hardware change, so you should be able to get this. So what I'm going to do, and it's a pain for me, but I am going to allow send-in upgrades again. But there's a couple caveats. First is it's only going to be for new unsoldered boards. That's not for punishment. That's simply because I have this programmer clip. The board clips in, and the instant you soldered to the board, it makes it too thick and it doesn't fit in my programmer. And to have to manually hook stuff up, it takes way too long for me. So it's got to be new and unsoldered. And for now, I'm going to say the past 3 months only. If you bought a board longer than that, I'm hoping you already got the value out of it, so it's not a big deal. But if you extremely want the upgrade and your board happens to be new, you haven't installed it yet, like give it a couple weeks and then contact me. Because if the rush is huge, then I'm not going to want to deal with it. But if the rush is really light and after a couple weeks it's taken care of, then we can talk. All right, so that is everything I have on the agenda. So it's pretty exciting for all this stuff for Spark Color 2 and Spark 2. Some great mid-range and entry. I really think it's more than an entry-level board at an entry-level price now, which is really great. But it turns out there's one more thing that I've got that's hot off the press. And that I'm calling the IntelliBlade. The IntelliBlade is a completely custom-designed pixel blade that supports WS2812. It's designed specifically for Sabers. I custom designed this to work with Sabers that support pixel blades. So this is a blade that's custom built for Sabers. Similar to the Adafruit Skinny, it does have 144 of the smaller pixels per meter. Actually, mine is I think like 144.03. Is slightly tighter than the Skinny, but nothing you could really make a difference of. So we'll just say 144. but it's no worse, definitely. What's also neat is it's already built in 3 long strips, and it's pre-segmented, so you can easily configure it into the triangular prism. And we'll see that in a second. I also put this on a little bit more rigid PCB. It's not a paper PCB. And the rigid PCB helps to A, for install, and B, helps to prevent any kind of weird shadowing from folding. And then I also created some really nice long pads underneath where you hook to, so that way you can stagger it, when you have to run 3 in parallel, so they won't all like ground out on each other. And what's really great about this is, of course, it'll work on all my entire line of products, but this will also work on competitors' boards, and those open source type boards that are using Arduino, like Arduino-based boards, that support WS2812. If the board supports it, this string will work with it. And I have a picture of it here, and I actually have one just here that I'll grab. And what I'll do is talk through it and hold it up. I don't think you guys would be able to see it good. I can't like walk up close because I've got a mic here, so the sound is really awesome because the mic on the camera is terrible. So I've got to stay here. That's why I have it here as well, so you can see it zoomed in, and then I can talk about it. So the first thing you'll see, it is split in half. The cost of making one long PCB is extreme. And also, I really don't want to deal with shipping this giant long thing. So this way I can fold it, put it in a medium flat rate box. So there's that. And then you can see, these are small LEDs. They're very tightly spaced. But what else is cool? Well, as you see here in the picture, and I'll demonstrate here, you just immediately fold this like this, and it's already in a triangular prism. And you just got to tape it up a little, and you're ready to go. I mean, this is then ready to just be, you'd probably want to wire these bottom wires first, but then just wrap that up and tape, and it's ready to be installed. So this is going to make the install like as easy as possible for anyone doing these types of blade installs. And then here, what I show is, by the way, I also include the tape because I include a special tape. I think it's called a captive or captain tape. And this is the tape that's like, it's like anti-static and doesn't retain heat as much, so it's fine for electronics. And also, you see, I got the little guy. That way, you can put him on top, and shine your blade, light up your blade tip. All right. So let me put this down. So what are the advantages over this? We've kind of alluded to it by what I told you what it is, but let's explicitly call it out. This is skinnier than the skinny. So it's extra compact and fits very well even in a 7/8" blade. And that allows you to, utilize all the blades. I used the skinny strips in 7/8", and the vertical shadowing was horrible. I never wanted to do it, but now you can do it. Second is, with the normal diffusion that I use for all my other blades, there is 0 vertical shadowing. You don't have to use a lot of extra wrap like I did for my other pixel strings. Like this just automatically doesn't have it due to all the changes I made. One of the changes I made was it's brighter. Why is it brighter? Well, not just construction, but I use the brightest possible of these small LEDs, which I believe are they're definitely a little brighter than the Adafruit ones. And that all adds up to a much brighter blade. Well, how much brighter, you might ask? Well, here on the left, I have the 5mm straw hat. This was the brightest known string blade I have found using my lux meter here, which measures the light output. I was always getting around 220, 219 for the green color. And I just tested on green to make it consistent. So that's pretty bright. That's actually like, you can go to my site and have a comparison. That's not quite as bright as a Tri-Cree coming out the emitter. The Tri-Cree is about like 230 coming out the emitter, but the Tri-Cree, and that is, by the way, those are in thousands, so it's actually like 2,190. So the Tri-Cree is like 2,300 something, right, coming out the emitter. But then near the 3/4 of the blade, the Tri-Cree is only down to like 1,000 or a little over 1,000. And this is obviously, this 2,190 across the blade. So it is a little better than a Tri-Cree. However, now you look over here to your guys' right and see the IntelliBlade. That's sitting there at 4,110. That is basically 2 times the brightness of this thing that was already a little brighter than a Tri-Cree with a completely even blade that you're getting color mixing on. So that is the brightness improvement you're going to get with my IntelliBlade. Now, the IntelliBlade is not just a blade, it's a kit. So I don't sell completed blades. In the future, I'll have a third-party person that does assemble these and sell it as a blade. For now, I'm going to sell a kit. But because I know it's still, some people are new to this and etc., I'm going to try to make this kit as robust as possible. So each kit is coming with, obviously, it's coming with this. It's coming with the little pixel and the tape, obviously. But I'm also going to include this wrap. And I have a piece just here. And so you can cut up this foam. This is the 1/8 inch thick foam. You can cut this up, roll it up very tightly like a hot dog, probably about 2 to 3 layers. And this will be your, it's not really for diffusion. This barely diffuses. It's mostly for padding. But you do need that. I'm also going to sell you your choice of either a 1/4 inch male and female jack, the GX12 male and female aviation jack, or the 1/8 inch aka mini stereo jack male and female. There's an asterisk on the mini. We'll talk about that in a second. But I have actually just here, the aviation. And here it is. And so this has got 6 pins, which I think the 6 pins the best. And it pulls in and out. So you'll get this. This is one of the, it's a really good one. You don't have to worry about if your battery's unplugged that you're going to short anything with this connector. So it's a pretty good connector. I'm just going to put it just here. And there's still more you're going to get. You're also going to get a 3D printed socket for both ends, for the blade and for the inside your 1-inch housing. So all my adapters will be for the 1-inch housing. If you need a 7/8 inch, I'll probably just put a design up, put one up but not print it, unless maybe you pay extra or something, just because it's going to take me too much to sort through all that. And then the gotcha is that on the 1/8, I'm not going to actually include the socket for the blade end, because I figure, hey, the reason why you want that small one is because you have some kind of crazy thin neck Lucurios custom thing. And I'm not going to design something custom for every Saber. So I'm just going to give you the male. So on that one, the female actually will go in the blade and the male will be out because the male is smaller. But I do also want to show you the example just here. And I'll, again, flip forward so you can see a zoomed in picture. But here is the example of the 1/4 inch jack with the 3D printed parts I designed. In the picture, there's 2 females there. You only get 1. And I have it just here. And you can see the 3D printed part. This is the end that goes in the blade. And you just secure it with the set screw. And this is 1-inch OD. This can just go down in your blade housing and go in there. And you see they just plug together perfectly. And this is made to fit inside the TCSS LED diffuser. So don't cut your TCSS LED diffuser down. Just leave it all the way to the end of the blade. This slides right in there. And you do need that diffuser, the blade. And I do recommend just a foot or 2 of the cellophane wrap. That's not necessary, but I do think it helps the look. I'm going to put these just here. And we can move on. And my mouse is not working, so I need to move forward. The beauty of live videos. Okay, so what are the drawbacks compared to any other pixel string of this string? For everything in life, there's a trade-off, and I'm an honest guy, so I'm going to tell you when is the case you actually wouldn't want to buy this, because I don't want you buying this and being wait, this isn't for me. And so the first drawback is basically because I made this rigid PCB, it's not going to hold up quite as well to dueling. So I'm actually saying that this is not for dueling at all. This is just for show, taking to cons, etc. So if you're going to duel at all with one of these blades, I highly recommend just getting the Adafruit style and just doing back to back, even though that has more vertical shadowing. If you're going to beat the heck out of it, you want it as condensed as possible. You want it flexible because that'll absorb more of the hits. Now, granted, this can still take some hits, if you're just playing around with it, but no dueling. The second thing is the cost. And this actually already probably should have put this first, because the price you're going to pay for this, you're not going to want to duel with it anyways. This is going to be as expensive or potentially more expensive than the Adafruit skinny style strips, buying 3 of them. So there's that. And with this, I didn't mention, you can actually install this back to back. You can cut one off, of course, but I'm not going to sell you only 2 because that's too hard for me. So, you could buy you could buy 2 kits from me and then get 3 blades out of it back to back if you so like. I prefer the triangular prism though for brightness and evenness and no shadowing. And finally, the other drawback that you're going to have is just power requirements. If you do the triangle prism, as I just recommended, unfortunately, you're only going to be able to use a 10 amp PCB battery. Just like when I had the old Z6, and that was a requirement, that's going to be a requirement again. So the Solos Hold 18650 or the Keeper Power or Keep Power 18650 3400 milliamp version, because other versions don't have the 10 amp PCB. So those two for sure always have the 10 amp PCB. There are other ones. I think Orbitronics makes one. You have to just make sure that it says it's a 10 amp PCB. But with all those drawbacks aside, if you want the brightest, I mean like 2 times brighter than the known brightest thing, you want that and you want it to be an easy install, this is it. This is going to be the only thing that can do that for you. So that's it, guys. We talked about a lot of exciting stuff today. We went over Spark 2 and Spark Color 2, some new features that are getting added for the R3 release for them. Then we went over the features that are combined for the Spark Color 2 and 2. So we talked about, first we talked about Saber Tracks, talked about Spark 2's getting RGB. Then for the combined features, we talked about the smoothness of the LED improvement, the 3 things I ported, the alternating clash, the linear hums and effects, and of course the NeoPixel support. Then we talked about you're getting those at lower prices, and best of all, I've created this brightest, most possible blade you can use in a Saber that will work now with all my line of products, the IntelliBlade. So that's it, guys. I hope you're as thrilled as I am to go out and try these new products, to use the IntelliBlade to make the brightest blade possible, to take advantage of the new features of Spark 2 and not be like that lazy cat and actually be able to enjoy the music and use your Saber at the same time. Thanks, everyone, for sticking with me, and thanks for all the support, and I will be talking to you guys more on Facebook and the forums. Have a good day.